Welcome to the Saturday Night Live Afterparty. This week, we'll be discussing Season 46, Episode 10 of SNL with host John Krasinski and musical guest Machine Gun Kelly. I'm Catherine Coleman, and I'm joined this week by GameStop investors Steve Finn and John Murray. If you'd like to connect with any of us, you can do so at snlpodcast.com. All right, here we go. Cool, so SNL has entered 2021, guys.
Oh my God.
Woohoo!
That makes it real.
It's about time. They took their sweet time coming back.
They certainly did. They had a plethora of news items to throw at a first-time host, but I thought John Krasinski proved to be pretty capable.
Yeah, certainly poised. He carried himself very well.
Absolutely.
Emily Blunt must have given him some really great insider tips.
We'll never know. We'll never know because nobody seemed to care about that during the monologue.
But before we start talking about Krasinski too much, let's talk about the news of our next couple hosts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next week, we got Dan Levy with musical guest Phoebe Bridgers. And then on February 13th, Regina King with Nathaniel Rateliff. So I know y'all are excited about your Canadian host, right?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, he comes from Comedy Bonafide. So at least, for people that grew up on SCTV, they're going to have high expectations of Dan Levy because of his father, Eugene. But he's having a moment. He's been on Schitt's Creek for a few years. So he's kind of a known figure now, at least, in our neck of the woods.
He created Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, no, he's a bit of a force, and he's on the rise right now. So this is a good moment for him to kind of step out into the U.S. national spotlight. I think this is a fun booking, and because he comes from comedy, I don't know. I'm expecting great things from him, and he's got to represent Canada. So next week is definitely the episode I'm going to be excited about.
Absolutely.
Don't undercut his U.S. Popularity. We're all big Schitt's Creek fans too. So.
Yep.
Well,
and I believe his $4 million home resides in L.A. So
that's true.
You guys got him.
I'm thrilled to see Dan Levy. I love Schitt's Creek. I love him. I think he's hilarious. I'm really got my fingers crossed for a Eugene cameo. I know it's unlikely, but man, I'm excited. And Phoebe Bridgers is phenomenal. I'm really, really happy for Phoebe Bridgers. She is super talented. And I think you guys are going to like her too if you haven't listened to her yet. So
yeah, the fun of Phoebe Bridgers, Regina King, and Nathaniel Rateliff is that I have absolutely no idea who any of them are. And sometimes the most fun and surprising SNLs are the one that you just go in with no expectations and you're pleasantly surprised. And so I'm certainly hoping for great things from all of them.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into this week's show. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. For the cold open, Kate McKinnon, as herself, hosts What Still Works. And here's a hint. Only Tom Brady does. And only kind of. So, Steve, what worked about this cold open?
I thought it really flowed well. We did cover a lot of ground, as we were probably expecting because of how much time passed and what happened. I was kind of hoping for a more positive open to SNL, but I also understand it because, while we did have the inauguration of Biden, and obviously that's going to be celebrated on SNL, there's still a lot of weird, not so great stuff that happened over the break. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. I think it worked well, and they summarized everything in such a great humorous way. I thought it was a good cold open. Was involved with politics a little bit, but it wasn't totally politically central. That's great.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't. This is good because I don't consider this a political cold open, right? It had political topical aspects to it, obviously, but it wasn't in the press briefing room or the Oval Office or the Capitol. It was topical. It hit on some political stuff, but it wasn't beating us over the head with, a Trump impression or a Biden impression or, all that stuff, really heavy handed. So I was really excited when it got started. I was like, oh, are we getting into a new era? Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm getting my hopes up. Probably so. But I really liked it. I thought this was a really creative way to get to hit on all of those topics that happened because my God, everything happened. And just really clear. If this had been anywhere else in the show, I don't know that I would have liked it as much as I did. Like, I think
Mhm.
a big part of me being so hot on it is just because it wasn't what I expected for the cold open, and that made me happy.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was a big win for me, but not necessarily because it's a fantastic sketch, but just because it's different and it's new, and I really like that they went there. And give me Kate as herself any day of the week. I'll take it. Preferably on Saturday, when the show is. But
Had some similar feelings. I appreciated the refreshing opening on a scene that, you're right, isn't a podium, that isn't an obvious political parody of the week's events. Like that, it's just
Mhm.
nice to switch it up. But I also kind of felt like a little angry at SNL. Like, wait a minute, you guys have been capable of doing these sort of things for the last 4 years, and we've literally had 100 really
Right.
like uninspired, angry political cold opens in a row, and we could have just done something a little more creative with it. And all of a sudden, Biden's inaugurated, and now we're thinking outside the box. So I was kind of,
Just look forward.
yeah, but at the same time, it's not like I was looking for political parody. I wasn't looking for,
Right.
Biden at a podium or a Kamala Harris walk on or anything like that. So, as much as it was just funny that, oh, you are still capable of switching up the cold opens when you want to, aside from that, I liked it. We had a lot of ground to cover. Like you said, there's a lot of news topics and a lot of stuff that obviously people are going to just be scratching their heads going like, how are we continuing to heap more drama on top of like the most dramatic year in a century? And, how did we get to here? So it's understandable how you can kind of just be dumbfounded by it all. And so that's what they were tapping into.
Mhm.
Kate, obviously, she's the figurehead of the show. She's the one that's already established herself as passionate about politics and willing to drop the veil to speak into camera about her passion. So, everything was tracking here. The one thing that I really like, first time host comes out, in a minute, he
Mhm.
has to be suited up and poised and ready to deliver a monologue, but he
Yeah.
can still come in and put the capper on this cold open. And I'm thinking, well, we see Tom Hanks do that. We see some
Yeah.
people do that, but usually not a first time host. And it
No.
just said a lot about the confidence they had in John Krasinski and
Mhm.
maybe just him saying, put me in, coach, like I'm ready to play.
Mhm.
So somewhere
Yeah.
along the line, someone was enthusiastic about letting him do whatever he wanted to do. And that to me was the funnest part of the cold open.
Fun stuff in the cold open. And while we're talking about Krasinski, let's talk about his monologue, which was a Q&A where everyone just wants Jim to kiss Pam. So, John, how are you feeling about the monologue?
Oh, I'm as you're setting it up, I'm going to that scene of Kate in one of her old lady characters. She's at like some work meeting and
Yeah.
it's like she's retiring or something, and like her last request is she just wants everyone to kiss or something because she's just
Mhm.
a weird old perv.
Keys.
Yeah, exactly. So brushing that aside, this monologue actually had me scratching my head a little bit because John Krasinski came out like so poised and so like in control of very calculated gestures and his delivery that I thought, oh, he's rehearsed this like 100 times. Like he really wants this to go off without a hitch.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you polish things up too much, it almost makes you seem a little more nervous because it gives the sense that you're working too hard at it.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah, you
some of
want
the
it to feel a little
looseness,
natural.
yeah, the looseness and the freshness of someone that just knows how to come out and command a stage without having to overthink it wasn't there. So there was something a little rigid about this, but at the same time, I'm thinking if anyone ever let me out on Studio 8H to deliver a monologue, I'm going to go over it 300 times, especially if I'm a lifelong fan and like this is
Right.
really like a big night for me. I don't want to blow it. So
Right.
it makes me respect him as like an actor who's willing to put in the time and everything. But at the same time, he's just not a stand-up comedian. So it's kind of nice
Right.
that they very quickly veered off that and, went into some other more well-tread shtick.
Right.
Mhm.
It was fun, he seemed he seemed confident, so it was interesting that they decided to kinda take it away from him and do a
Yeah.
Q&A.
Mhm.
So, that's made me scratch my head a little bit, and then I was kinda thinking, "Okay, it's gonna be all The Office." And so, what I really appreciated was when Pete came in and gave us a justification for that. and
Right.
said, well, everyone's been watching it in quarantine, so that's all we can think about. And I was like, okay, yeah, that is why we're talking about The Office again. I can back on board now. They don't always give us justifications on SNL, but I was happy to see them do it this time. And yeah, perfectly competent monologue. Nothing really to praise or critique here for me.
Actually, as you're mentioning Pete, I did have one criticism. The whole idea of Pete recognizing that they're not going to get off the stage until they satisfy the audience. I think they needed to lean into it a little more heavy, that this is really like Pete lobbying for a kiss from Krasinski and make him like a little bit more eager. And then the kiss, Krasinski's a dashing leading man and, tall and built. He needed to like swoop Pete back, and just really give it to him. And I think that would have been the capper that I think would have sent this out on a much higher note. Because what we got was sort of fun as a shock. Is it a shock to see two guys kiss anymore? But I mean, that's the gag. Like, this is kind of, weird. I just think if they'd really gone big on this big sweeping romantic, whatever kind of kiss to end all kisses, then this would have been really kind of neat. But what it was still
and if
fun
Pete
enough.
had done maybe like no, just pretend I'm Pam and like put on like a wig, like, see, like, I'm Pam, really kiss me, come on.
Yeah, and then there's an off the cuff joke of like, you have a wig, and like there could have been
right.
There was another gear to this that would have been fun to see, but what we got was still serviceable.
Definitely.
I'm going to end this writing session right now.
Sure, Steve. What do you got?
We got what we got. So that's what we're talking about here. I half expected this to be the monologue for John Krasinski's show. People just can't move on from The Office. It's part of their DNA now. And as much as, John wants to be an action star and be in all the big Amazon shows, I mean, great for him, but he's always going to be Jim to a very large group of people. And yeah, it's definitely the type of person to say, do The Office, do Jim, kiss Pam. Celebrities deal with that all the time. I think we know that by now. One thing about this monologue, and I never thought I'd be saying this, the COVID restrictions kind of ruined the immersion of Q&A style monologues. I don't know if you noticed, but they're all standing behind the audience without their own seat,
right,
which of course they're probably forced to do because of restrictions. But
it's actors instead of writers, which they usually do.
Yeah, and you can't really buy them as audience members when they don't even have their own seat. But it's such a minor complaint because, I mean, we know Alex Moffat and Nego are in the show anyway, so it's already kind of ruined.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, let's get into it. We have Blue Georgia explores the changing dynamics of the southern state following their election results. Steve, was this a win for you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did have a lot of fun with this. And it's more or less what popped in my head when I heard the news of how the election went for Georgia. It's just magically people turn into these big ultra hippies, like just because a couple of extra people voted one way over the other. I think it's funny to think that, the minute that they switch over to a blue state, that they turn into Brooklyn, New York. I think that's great. Now, it was a little bit reminiscent of a sketch we saw in the last Seth Meyers episode where we saw, the Deep South.
The liberal lanyap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've seen that left-wing lens applied to a southern, typically red state. So it was reminiscent of that, and also reminiscent of the mafia, the woke mob guys from a couple of episodes ago. They're probably making a little bit of a series out of it, which is fine. It's a recurring sketch with a little bit more adding and removing. So it does look new, but that premise, that idea has been there. Although I'm still enjoying it, I found.
Yeah, I liked this a lot. The notion that they elected some Democrats, so all of Georgia is blue, and not
Yeah.
just because it's a result of high voter turnout. Like, no, people in Georgia didn't change. But I love the idea that they did, and then putting these sort of woke things on the traditional Southern stereotypes. So we have things like, of course, someone's going to own a truck dealership, but now it is an electric truck dealership. We're going to go over our pronouns, and mine are she, ma'am. Like, that's hilarious. So, like, they did a really good job of connecting with those Southern tropes and mapping them onto the woke things. And I really loved it. I thought they found some fun places to go. With, reading the good book, we have the restroom thing. Now we have the Trump guy come in, heightened really well. The pacing was great. I thought this was a really strong, first sketch out of the monologue. John, how about you?
Yeah, I liked it. For everything that you guys said, it's a great collision of different ideologies and how does the South interpret new values, like you said, especially like with the pronouns was a great example. Fun to be had there. A lot of fun. So clever idea, well executed. I wasn't entirely sure how close they were trying to make this into some sort of a Mayberry spoof, but whether it was intentional or not, Andrew Dismukes does an incredible Barney Fife. So, I mean, if they ever do a revival of the Andy Griffith Show, there's your casting right there for Don Knotts. So that wasn't lost on me. There was something very, I think that when they were trying to figure out the look or just the sensibility of people, I think someone was watching some old Andy Griffith. That's the only insight I can offer on what I thought was clever and fun and definitely of the time.
Yeah. And you knew they were going to draw the line somewhere. I don't know if you saw it coming, but I was like, okay,
Right,
there's going to be something
only go so
where,
I thought it was
Right.
going to be the Jewish line, but then
yeah. But that was a red herring, a misdirect. But the hill that they chose to die on was the masks. I thought that was pretty astute,
All right, well, big win there. Let's keep going. Jonah comes to the defense of his little brother, the loser, but maybe he only makes things worse. Steve, what'd you like about it?
Now, this is the type of monologue that someone like John Krasinski can handle. This is what we were talking about, some beats or some lines that took too long to get out of him in the monologue. These are the kinds of things that you wouldn't have to worry about, not only in a pre-tape, but something with a little bit more of a dramatic gloss over it. You do tend to play these straight. So I think this is why he did so much better with this kind of material.
Yeah.
He could draw from some of the more serious acting he's been doing for Jack Ryan. And, the monologue, the writing of all his lines, that's where the real humor is. This was every bit as good as its spiritual predecessor, the
Take me back.
The Kyle
teacher
Mooney-
Oh.
no, the teacher and student thing with Andrew and Ego.
Oh, okay.
Oh. So I was going to say that it was very reminiscent of Take Me Back. Because in the sense of it's heaping those coals on and keeping
Right.
this thing going. And I thought that the writing, the thing I loved about Take Me Back was how smoothly it was written and
Right.
how just natural that conversation felt. And I felt like this was exactly the same way. So I don't know if it's, Mikey and Streeter doing all these screenplays they've been doing lately, but the dialogue in these sketches is amazing.
I can't
and I
wait
like
for Home
this.
Alone now.
It's a fun twist on this heartwarming trope. I thought Dismukes did a fantastic job. All of his reactions were great. But yeah, the thing that really stood out to me was, man, they can just write these monologues so well and so smoothly, and it blows my mind. It's not easy to do. So
Yeah.
John, what'd you think?
I liked it. I had a couple thoughts. Andrew Dismukes does look like kind of a pre-Captain America version of Captain America. Like the skinny version of him
Dweeby?
before he goes in the chamber and turns into Captain America.
Yes.
You look at them and you're like, there's something there that tracks. So them as brothers, totally buying that. John Krasinski in pre-tapes, when he can really own his performance and sort of make love to the camera, definitely in his element. There was a moment where he's he's talking up his brother and he's getting really impassioned, and he kind of like puts his shoulder forward and kind of like fronts a little bit, the way that you would think a confident high school footballer would. Like, there was something about his strut that was very authentic, and it was just a little tiny performance bit that it's hard for me to figure out the right words to explain, but just watch his physicality and how he's carrying himself, and tell me if he's not a 17-year-old like king of the school, Letterman jacket guy. And I'm thinking, okay, great. Like, we've seen him do gym, memory foam squishy Jim, and now we're seeing him do this, and I'm seeing two different characters, and I'm thinking, okay, so he probably saw the first draft of this script maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and they're taping it Friday. That's not a lot of time to find some nuance in your performance, but there's something there. So I really like that, and the rest of it is all perfectly good. It's always fun to have those private, personal, little embarrassing things just get hung out for everyone to see. Like, that's you're always going to get, yes, you're always going to get fun reactions from people when you make them squirm, feeling, oh, I'm so glad the spotlight's not on me. Like, if anyone knew my things. So that's all fun. This is great material, and just really nicely realized by a competent actor.
Yeah. Big win there. Up next, we've got Craig's terrifying twins taking over his cable news appearance. And now, Steve, I'm not sure what it is, but something tells me that you liked this one.
I just like knowing where they are.
Yeah.
That's why they're here, just so I can keep tabs on them. Hi, guys. Yeah. This was interesting, I will say. I didn't expect it to go this direction. I thought we were going to see a little bit more progression in the art that the children created. I kind of like the idea of them being off screen and just learning more about them as we see more skinless face art or sent to pediatric babies. They just kept showing that stuff, as he changed rooms, like, oh, sorry, is this better? And then you see some other disturbing entity in the background. That would have been one way to go with it. But I like that, my expectations were taken, and we maybe got a little bit too close to the creators of such art, which is what's great. I'm all about the discomfort. I have no problem being a little bit scared, a little bit nervous. That's where I do my most laughing. So this is the kind of sketch that I can really enjoy, and everybody involved with it really sold it. Beck especially, his fear was palpable, but also hilarious.
I also wanted to call out Beck. I think Beck had a great performance here. His delivery on maybe they're homeschooled. Yeah, it was fantastic.
No, I mean about the stocks.
This is fun. I thought the great things about it were the game was really clear. There was a slight, you weren't sure what the game was at first with the art, but then they got to it pretty quickly, and then from there we knew exactly what that game was, and they heightened it really well. There's nothing I can fault here. It's not like super my sense of humor, so I didn't love it, but absolutely nothing wrong with it. A perfectly competent sketch that I think had a lot going for it. So, John, were you warm on it?
Yeah, I really liked it. There's like this makes a lot of sense because so much of everything is happening over Zoom. So whenever we connect with someone, we do get a little bit more of their world than you would get in a more sterilized studio environment. The idea that, yes, sometimes we don't want to know what's happening just beyond the frame of the camera in people's lives when they're doing their segments on news. Very true and very of the time, and the perfect thing to start goofing on. And whoever thought that we need to bring, these little blonde, dead-eyed cretins into it is beyond me. But that's just fun. Like if you're gonna bring in someone's personal life into frame, what's the creepiest thing you can throw at it? Well, yeah, it's Kate and Mikey. Just whatever that is, Stepford wife kind of situation. It was working. It was really, really genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
Let's get into our next one. Now that's what I call theme songs sung by the stars. John, how'd you feel about it?
Perfectly good impression vehicle. Chloe does what Chloe does. She got a couple moments to shine. And I don't know if we've seen, she was Kim Cattrall, right? From Sex and
She
the City?
was. Yeah.
Mhm.
That was her
And
second
Nicole
impression, which I thought was pretty strong. And yeah, Melissa Villaseñor, obviously, you know, we hope to see her turn up in these because we know that she's got some serious skills in that regard too. But yeah, everyone was able to bring something fun to it. And John Krasinski was there in the fray. The way I understand it, he came in early. Like this was something they were producing last week, kind of in the lead up, I believe, is the way I understand it. So again, just sticking with the theme of John Krasinski just being game to do whatever the show's willing to let him get his hands on. I think maybe he even, you know, maybe rallied ahead of time to be able to lay this one down.
love
That might just be, I don't know, that may be very uncredible. I don't have multiple sources on that, but yeah, that I caught wind of something along those lines. So I'm just going to pretend that that's the truth of the situation and
That's
put it
our
out there for everyone to embrace as fact. That's all I got. You know, what can you really say about impression vehicles other than if they do the impressions well, they're fun. If they don't, they're not. In this one, I thought everyone did a good job.
Well, I will say that this is a fun new way to do the impression wheel, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a sing your theme song one before. So
Yeah, we've had other like CD compilation ones before,
mhm.
like holiday, you know, CDs and
Yeah.
stuff
That's
like
true.
that. But yeah, nothing like this that had something that was going to marry nicely with the host's opportunity to
Mhm.
participate. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, so I thought this was a really fun, really nice new way to get this in. Like you said, the impressions were all great. I thought they made some fun jokes with, you know, what are finding that little line of what is this show about and writing the theme songs.
Right.
But the big payoff here, of course, is John Krasinski doing The Office as Alex Moffat asked him
Right.
to do so kindly earlier in the show. And yeah,
Scranton,
I thought that was super
Scranton,
fun.
Scranton.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a win for me. How about you, Steve?
I think I would have liked this a lot better if I actually watched any of the shows that they are
Probably
spoofing.
helpful.
I mean, I saw Ghostbusters. Does that count?
Wait, you haven't watched Stranger Things?
I watched the first 2 episodes and then I saw Butterfly or something. The only show that I actually knew was Frasier. And yeah, it just got Twitterfied, Facebookized. Kind of funny. I like the idea that Kelsey Grammer would be so out of touch that he would just throw names of social media into the song and be like, fellow kids, I'm one of you now. That was a funny moment.
Cool. Well, let's keep going. Up next, the FBI one by one raids this bubble's game night for storming the Capitol. John, what'd you think?
Fun. I would have liked something that switched it up a bit halfway through, because ultimately it repeated the exact same beat over and over and over again. So as much as I like that, you know, it is juicy to think that, oh, well, okay, one person was obviously crazy and incognito and just, you know, waiting for the other shoe to fall, but everyone else in the scene are normal. And no, it's, you know, how they keep getting revealed. That's fun to a point, but I think there just needed to be something else happening to really make this a great sketch from just being a fun idea that was fun, but just not great. So, you know, this was okay. I enjoyed it for what it was. I would have liked to have seen it go somewhere else.
I agree. Totally. They tried to vary it up with, you know, how the FBI agents arrived.
Right. Or the various costumes or their backstories from being at the Capitol.
And the second beat was exactly the same. AD gets up. Oh, it's the pizza man. It's not the pizza man. Let me get my costume. You know, nothing changed there. So I like you. I would have liked to see it vary up a little more, but I enjoyed it. You know, I think it was a clever way to tackle, you know, the insurrectionists and nothing super smart to be said, you know, since they didn't really get into it too much. But it was very short. They didn't try to draw it out too much, so I think that helped it. And then the little detail of the adjectives was kind of the biggest win for me. So every time someone got arrested, it was not nice, racist Dina.
Oh, right.
You know, like those were
like
really
all the
fun.
clues were
That was
there
the
for
best.
anyone that wanted to genuinely understand these people. They could have if they weren't like, there was something fun about that.
Yeah, that was probably the part that kept me laughing every
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I see some truth to the accusations that it was just the same beat over and over, redressed. This sketch, I enjoyed it, but it definitely did rely on recognizing all the figures, all the ones that made it into the news and
Mhm.
were the biggest spectacles of it all. Like we saw the
Podium
shaman
guy.
guy, the Uncle Jam, the podium thief, they were all there. So seeing those little reveals and being like, oh, this guy we've been watching was this guy this
Mhm.
whole time. That's kind of where a lot of the meat comes from in this sketch.
Fair enough. So, a little bit middle of the road there. Let's get into our musical performances. Machine Gun Kelly gives us My Ex's Best Friend and Lonely. And I will say, I was going into this, I was like, Machine Gun Kelly is a rapper.
He subverted your
but he is.
expectations.
He
Is
he
he?
is a rapper. This is his first album where he's gone into this pop punk thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I
That-
actually had to do this whole realization today. I was like last night. I was like, okay, this is like bad Blink-182.
Yeah.
I guess is what this is. It turns out that this is his first pop punk album, and it was produced by Travis Barker. So
Interesting.
everything started clicking together for
Mhm.
me once I read like the Wikipedia article. And yeah, it made me I think there's nothing wrong with either of these songs in the sense of every time I tried to form a critique of it, it's nothing that I couldn't say about Blink-182, but I really like Blink-182 because I'm nostalgic for Blink-182
Sure.
and they're what I love. So I'm like, is this how my parents felt? Like they were like, what's this newfangled thing, you know? So it made me feel bad in that way. And the songs have grown on me a little bit, but yeah, it seemed, Travis went in and apparently just produced the closest thing to Blink he could with Machine Gun Kelly to me. I wish they had done wish there was something a little newer about it, I guess,
Mhm.
overall. But the performances, if we're not going to critique Machine Gun Kelly as an artist, the performances were fine.
Okay.
John, how'd you feel about it?
Well, I appreciate your insights on it because that makes a lot more sense knowing who
Mhm.
produced it and the idea that this is his first run at something outside of hip hop. Far more intriguing now with that insight.
You're right.
My initial feeling was there's nothing about what's happening on the stage that I like. Like everything about it, I'm finding utterly obnoxious, including his armpit tattoo, which just hurts to think about. But the
A lot of nerves
songs,
there.
the songs were incredibly familiar, and they kept having little moments that kept reminding me of music that I like, and
Mhm.
it was making me mad because I really didn't want to like this, and I really don't like the emo subject matter. Like it just, I don't like hearing guys talk about their feelings. Like we had this when I was a kid. It was called Dashboard Confessional, and
I love emos.
it's never that's never worked for me. But I really like the sound, and so there was just something that seemed so wrong about like how I'm hating everything about this performance except the music, which my brain just
Mhm.
could not square that away.
Yeah.
So I'll say the drummer definitely had me impressed. Machine Gun
That's 'cause
Kelly
Travis
himself.
wrote the parts.
Well, there you go. Machine Gun Kelly himself, I could not, I can't get on board with his look, his presence, the register he sings in. There wasn't a lot about him that I was digging. But there was something about the sound that was just too close to what I grew up on to not
Right.
feel a little tinge of something warm and fuzzy
Right.
about it.
Exactly.
And I'll have to leave it there because of this one just really threw me. It was just my brain almost exploded watching these performances.
It was a jarring experience.
It was.
Steve, what'd you think?
Well, if I could quote the sovereign philosopher Mitch Hedberg for a moment. Oh, you can cook. Can you farm? And that's pretty much what's going on here.
Sure.
Just like the rest of you, I tuned in thinking, hey, this guy's a rapper. Now, I haven't heard much of his stuff, but I look forward to hearing his raps about various subjects. And then we saw what we saw. And I remember thinking, well, this is going to save me time on my rewatch because I don't care to see this again.
There you go. Fair enough.
So I'm right there with you guys. Blink 182. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that with the Travis Barker production. That makes a lot of sense because this reminded me of being in high school and seeing the Scully kids take out a slot at the talent show and then proceed to bastardize Blink 182.
I think the overall message here is we're all three out of touch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is not a performance for us. And maybe the most humble take we can have on it is just acknowledging that, yeah, there's nothing about this that was supposed to appeal to us. So it did its job marvelously.
Let's get into Weekend Update. For their lead-in, Jost and Che catch up on the news of the last month. Inauguration, Christmas, and insurrections, oh my. Steve, how'd you feel about this Weekend Update outing?
Well, I guess it was what it was. They definitely had a lot of topics to cover, including Christmas and the inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty serviceable. They had a lot of the typical trademark jokes, like describing a certain political figure in a hilarious way. This time we got Rand Paul as Kevin Spacey playing an elderly woman. Had a good laugh at that.
Yep.
Che had a moment that kind of sticks out for me. Now, I'm not saying you can't go for an off-color joke. He went for the transgendered quip.
President Biden signed an executive order repealing Trump's ban on transgender people serving in the military. Unfortunately, Biden is calling the policy, "Don't ask, don't talk."
And yes, it was a little bit transphobic. Now, I don't believe that people make these jokes and believe what they say, but it really doesn't help if you're not completely on board. And there was a hesitation. There was a fear of telling that joke.
I don't know if it was
also,
that,
it wasn't a great joke.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't that great. And you're really not going
to. A little bit. I think he was more discouraged by that. The delivery just didn't happen the way he wanted it to. Like something fell apart in the joke. So I think
because I think he was nervous about telling it. That's
okay. I didn't get that. I just thought it was just a fumbled joke, and so he was like, "Man, maybe that was going to be like my big stinger for the night. Like that got a big laugh or something in dress, and it just crashed and burned because I blew it." Like that's what I was hearing from it. But who knows? Maybe he was apprehensive.
Well, yeah, I just saw a hint of hesitation before he actually delivered the punchline, and I think that took out a lot of the wind of it.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Yes, Che does very controversial humor, but if you show any kind of uncertainty about it, you don't come off like you're completely joking. Like you almost start thinking, does he believe that?
Right.
And sheepishly admitting it. It's just not the right tone for the joke.
I thought the lead in here was pretty middle of the road. And then after the first feature, they really started to get rolling. And I thought there were some really good jokes in the second two sections of the desk bits. My favorite being the bathwater one from Che.
It was reported that adult model Belle Delphine is making over $1 million a month by selling her used bathwater, which is crazy because it doesn't taste that good.
That was really great. But yeah, so it was overall, I think, a win, but a slow start for sure.
Yeah, I'm not too far off from you. I'm going to call this one of the weaker ones of the season. Not that it was particularly bad. They don't have many outings that I would ever call bad anymore. There's always a few solid moments. But this one, it did feel like they just didn't really have their groove, or maybe they just knew that they didn't have the strongest material. And so you just don't go into it knowing that you're going to bring the house down. And so there's just something that wasn't sparking. So this was not great, but there were moments to be had. I will, admit that there was probably half a dozen times where I audibly laughed. So it's not like it wasn't a win. It's just not the best that we've seen from them. And they had such a strong run pre-COVID where they were just really week over week. I feel like there's probably like 5 weeks in a row where I remember just thinking each week, like, this is right on top for the season. And it just, they'd really caught their stride.
Mhm.
And there's probably just something about a more tepid, thinner studio audience and just the times we're living in, and they don't got the Trump bump. And there's lots of stuff that's probably stealing some of the wind from their sales. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
how
they
I
have
feel.
this difficult position of competing with themselves.
True.
You know,
Yeah. They
they're
can't
at
all
that
be
point
the
in their
top one.
tenure.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. Let's talk about our features. First one, the My Pillow guy is here, and he doesn't talk to his pillow. He listens.
Oh God.
John, did you like this My Pillow appearance?
I hate that I liked it as much as I did, because I feel like the My Pillow guy is probably someone that just got caught up in a crap storm that he probably is too simple to have ever seen coming. Like, I just don't get the sense that he's, some evil genius co-conspirator with Trump. I think he's someone who made the maybe flawed judgment call to offer a moment of support to a president that
Mhm.
people love to hate, and he just kind of got clumped in with that. And
He's the useful idiot
I
of
mean,
a useful
he's
idiot.
also he's dopey as hell.
sure, but
Just from the
but the
get
thing is,
but yeah, like
it feels like punching down. Like, if it's someone who's like a puppet master in an administration, like someone that
Mhm.
you truly know is like an evil career politician, or just someone that is in the game and they're fair game, then have at it. But this guy, I kind of feel like the worst thing he ever did was just say, "Hey, I think Trump's an okay dude." Like, it seems like that's like, his offense was so innocuous, and yet he's now an arch villain that's worthy of parody on SNL. That said, it was really funny. And Beck plays an incredible challenged character, and he applied it very capably to My Pillow guy and the dark place that it went. And again, this is where the conflict is, because they're mining this guy's history that under any other circumstance would be like a rags to riches triumph of, overcoming your demons and bettering yourself, and like, it would be a beautiful thing to celebrate if you didn't like Trump. But instead, we're going to like drudge up this guy's life, and we're going to kind of rewrite his book in a very unflattering way on screen. It's a very scathing thing to throw at a guy that I don't think deserves it.
if it makes you feel better, his pillows suck.
I've never had a My Pillow, but
Have you tried it?
Yeah, I think my mom has one. They're terrible. This was fun. I think, we've seen Beck do the My Pillow guy before.
yeah, but it was at a podium, right? Like, he didn't really get a moment to really
right.
drink it in like he did here.
Right. It's a good impression. I like it. I feel like they could have maybe had a little more to say with it.
Than him recounting
I
his
don't know what that
experiences
is.
in Mexico, going on a year-long bender.
I guess the thing is they referenced the previous crack addiction so many times that it was like, are we gonna do something else? I don't know.
Okay.
I
Fair.
didn't love it. It was just very it was a little meandering. It didn't seem particularly focused to me. So I don't know. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of there.
Okay. See, I think the theme of tonight for you is all the things that are kind of like dark and creepy and just, say something about the character being mentally off. That just doesn't seem to be your cup of tea. You didn't like the Children of the Corn. This guy
Mhm.
who obviously has some sort of unwholesome attachment to his pillows and has broken with reality in many ways. I don't know. I find that like exceptionally funny. So it
Yeah.
is just interesting that it's not a matter
Right.
of, it's just a matter of subject matter, whether it clicks with you.
Yeah.
And I guess I
don't have the darkest sense of humor.
yeah, there's something off about me that just connects with these really, really dark characters.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have a strong critique here, other than it was a little bit all over the place. It just
Fair enough.
other than, like you said, not my style. Steve, was it yours?
I wasn't like Jane Krakowski level obsessed, but I still enjoyed it. I think it's all to do with Beck's performance, even between the lines, his facial expressions. I could just watch him listen to Colin talk to him as he turns his head and just makes that dumb mug that he does. It's so great. And yeah, all the creepy cuddling with the pillow. Like there's so much that he drew from to make this a very uncomfortable presence.
Our next feature is Fran Leibowitz and Martin Scorsese dropping by to discuss New York. Steve, did this work for you?
Oh yeah. Gotta love Bowen. He is a special breed with special privilege. He can transcend race, gender. He can do it all. And SNL is not stopping him. If he wants to play Fran Lebowitz, he can don a wig. I love this. But I do want to give credit to Kyle because he has no lines in this and is every bit as present and part of this as Bowen is. And he does that all in his reactions. It makes me want to see this show that they're spoofing on. I've seen the ads for it, but I'm sure they're exaggerating, but I just want to see Martin Scorsese fall all over this woman. This sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I haven't watched Pretend It's a City yet, but everyone's telling me to. It's apparently really great. So,
Yeah.
having not watched it, I'm sure there's some element of it going over my head. But I thought there were some great New York specific jokes with the 92nd Street Y in particular was my favorite. The difficult thing here is that it's kind of hard to parody someone that's already funny. It's like already kind of almost, a comedian.
She's already a character.
So that's right. So it's
Yeah.
very interesting that they tried to do it, and I don't. It did not work, but I don't think it. If it hadn't been for the fun of Bowen doing it, I don't know that I would have loved it. So yeah, I don't think there was anything fantastic in the writing here, and I think it was difficult. It was a difficult thing to try to tackle. That ultimately left me just feeling kind of meh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's weird though, because the jokes in this piece are not the jokes, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
No,
Yes,
that's exactly it.
Bowen is playing Fran and being Fran, and that's basically how Fran Lebowitz is. What's different and what's scaled up is the Scorsese element
Right.
of it. Magnifying that. Yes, she's saying funny things, but we're supposed to expect that and
Right.
be more tickled by just the over the top reactions of Kyle playing Scorsese.
Yeah. So maybe that's the part where if I had watched the show already, I would have said, "Oh yeah, that's a great thing they picked up on and really liked it." But
Yeah.
that's on me. John, what'd you think?
I liked it. When they said Fran Lebowitz, I thought Fred Armisen was going to come out because I feel like he is SNL's quintessential Fran Lebowitz. But if there was a worthy successor, I think Bowen would be it. This was fun. Steve, you touched on something that it's not there. There's no real jokes here. It's interesting that if you listen to Fran's dialogue, she starts off telling jokes or jokey stories that have a punchline. Like there's something you can track as far as what would be funny about it. But the more Martin Scorsese reacts, the less more nonsensical her statements are. They're not even jokes anymore. They're just vague observations of something almost New Yorky, to the point where he's just so worked up that anything she does, any word that comes out of her mouth is going to give him the giggles. So it's funny that they kind of showed the devolution of what she's saying and just how infectious it is to him, to the point where he's ripping off his eyebrows. I really like that as a fun little character dissection. These are just a fun, quick little caricature of these people. It's not trying to say anything. It's just setting a scene because someone watched that documentary and said, "Oh, isn't it funny that he's hanging on her everywhere and just thinks she's the bee's knees?" And they just ramped that up. And I think that works marvelously. And if it had lingered and tried to do something else, probably would have lost steam quick. But I thought, just for what it was, which is just a little pastiche, just give us a little scene here, a little picture of these two characters dynamic with each other. I loved it. I ate it up.
That's interesting, about how you're right. towards the end, it's just she says, "What's Dwayne Reed?" and they start like that. You're sort of giving me a new appreciation for it. So maybe I'll have to rewatch and reassess it. Let's get into our last feature. Kathy Ann is here to talk about all those crazy insurrectionists. John, did you like this edition of Kathy Ann?
Yeah, this is typical Kathy Ann. We haven't seen her in a while, so it was, good to revisit that character. She's the right voice for this kind of stuff. She was the unlikely hero speaking truth to power throughout the Trump administration. So it seems fitting that she should have one last hurrah as his, most ardent supporters dress up and play insurrection. I get it. Like this is the right material for Kathy Ann. Her back and forth with Che is always strong and, just sufficiently oogie. Yeah, I like it. I like Kathy Ann. She's always been a character that I think delivers more often than not.
Yeah, I also love Kathy Ann, and like you thought, yeah, who better to speak on this than her? She's the perfect character to put up to these lunatics. And I thought she had some good stuff here with the, I don't think score one for the master race and
Right.
the gorilla tranquilizers. I don't feel like it finished very strong. I thought it lost steam very suddenly. So, because of that, I don't think it's the strongest Kathy Ann outing. But overall, I had a good time.
Yeah.
Steve, what won for you?
What won for me was what usually wins about Kathy Ann. It's an interesting clash of just culture and having a progressive kind of outlook on things. There's not really much wrong with what Kathy Ann says about, the opinions she have are pretty reasonable. It's just that when it comes to making examples or finding an analogy of what she's saying, she only has her own life to draw from. And I think we know by now what kind of person Kathy Ann is. So that's just the beauty of it.
Let's get into the back half of the show. Definitely Just Friends. Chris and Gina are totally going to win this throwback episode of Supermarket Sweep. Steve, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I feel like I should make a correction. First of all, Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi met in the year 2000. So for there to be any mention of them as a couple in a show from the 90s is just unacceptable to me.
Yeah,
I hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Yeah, Anna Dresden, immediate demotion.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Get it together.
So that's my comic book guy rant done with. This was a lot of fun. And this is exactly how you would expect them to play something like this. But boy, what a great idea. It's kind of like the comedic version of what Mad Men was exploring with the Sal character. Have you guys seen that show? Yeah, like Sal from Mad Men. The whole idea was, from our modern perspective, he's getting away with being a closeted homosexual, but to us, we're so used to seeing the behavior and the mannerisms. He's clearly gay from our point of view, but he's getting away with it in the 60s because it's the 60s.
Right.
This is kind of like taking that same idea, which has proven to be great television, and make kind of like a comedic version of it.
This was a fun trope to pick up on, and I'm so glad they wrote it because I loved it. Everything about it was working for me. A Kate and 80 together, written by Dresden and Gates, is so rarely going to miss for me. That's just such a winning combination of people that every time I'm so here for it. Kate and 80 have such a fabulous chemistry. They've been working together forever, and just everything about it was great. And we had an appearance where they weren't too giggly. A thing we've said about Kate before is that lately it seems like she's just kind of laughing her way through some stuff, but this time they didn't. And I think that the sketch was much better for that. Yeah, I thought this heightened really well. The pacing was great. Everything about it was just fantastic to me. I I loved it so much. John, how'd you feel?
I liked it. Fun. I love that the John Krasinski character he's not onto them and playing the part as the TV pitchman and having to try and conceal it and dance around it and try and keep the show on the rails despite the fact that it's obvious. He is oblivious. And that's the more fun take on his character. Because otherwise it becomes this awkward comment on how inappropriate it would be to see this on TV and how he's thinking about his job and how,
that version's like sad.
Yeah. So there's another version of the host character that could have taken this in a different direction. What they landed on is the more fun take. And that's what helps keep this lively. Like obviously their characters are pitch perfect for this kind of material. And the moments that they have where they're literally professing their love for each other on the floor and he's reading it, he's interpreting it in a totally innocuous way. That's great. That's all really, really fun. So I enjoyed this.
I wonder which one he asked out.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Kate just because she didn't fall down with broken ankles.
Yeah.
Which I hear men are into. So okay, up next. Rocky and Dino get replaced by Brandon to bring Subway's marketing into the 2020s. Steve, what works?
Oh, what works? Oh, so much about this. This was such a perfect thing to write on the John Krasinski.
Krasinski.
What's his name? Krasinski. I got Jane on the mind still. I just loved his New York kind of Italian American accent. So perfect. But that's just short selling it. The whole embodiment of him and Beck as these out of date 80s or 90s business tycoons. Sometimes it takes seeing something to realize that it's not around anymore. How you might not notice fashion kind of evolving until you see old clothing and you're like, oh, that's how things changed. That's how I felt with these guys and their double-breasted suits and their very tacky ties. From the era that they're from, that's probably like the fashion of choice, right? But here it works so well as a immediate tip-off that they're kind of past their prime and out of touch, and just their whole behavior, the whole characterization of them is perfect for this. And as soon as Dismukes walks in with his younger attitude, and you just know where they're going with it, and it's great. As a man who frequents the keto diet, I was definitely a fan of the campaign itself. Yeah,
okay,
I would agree
that's disgusting because meat in a bowl is fine, but like Subway meat in a bowl is not fine.
Well, I wouldn't be picking bologna and salami.
It doesn't matter. Any meat at Subway alone in a bowl is not okay. Yeah, so the meat is what didn't work, but what did work was definitely the performances. How well rehearsed Beck and John had the song.
Oh yeah.
That was a feat. That's not, that takes some practice to get that down. They didn't miss a beat. They were totally in sync. This was
close to breaking.
This was really fun. Yeah, so close. John did a little bit when they got back to him, but they made it through the song, so I was pleased. Yeah, super fun sketch. I loved these characters. I wouldn't hate seeing them appear again at different companies, in their marketing departments. I think that would be really fun to see. What stuff they'd come up with there.
The runner throughout all of their recurring sketches could be the failed campaigns that are now infamously bad, like the Jared Fogle stuff, things that didn't age well. They could have been responsible for, Crystal Pepsi or, all the terrible stuff of the last 40 years. There you go. SNL. Enjoy. There's your next recurring sketch. I'm just going to step in here, Catherine, because I've already cut you off. So whatever you had to say, it's over.
I was about to throw it off.
Great. This was fun. I don't know if I was here in Brooklyn. I thought I was here in somewhere in the vein of New Jersey, Philadelphia, and maybe just a hint of Da Bears. So I don't know where, somewhere between Chicago and New York, but I'm
He's
not
a man of the world.
Yeah. I don't know where these pitchmen are from. They're from Out of Time. This was fun. This was fun. The song is obviously the thing that should catch your eye as our host again proving that he's going to just try as hard and be as rehearsed and ready to go. And he's never going to be the weak link in any of these sketches. So I like that. The meat bowl, anyone that looks at the graphic that they put up and thought that's appetizing, no, just no. That's all I got. So there was some fun to be had here. I enjoyed it.
All right. Win there. Let's talk about the 10-1. Ratatouille doesn't just do food anymore. He's a sex rat now. So, John, what'd you think about the Ratatouille sketch?
As a father of 3, I can say right off the bat, the rat's name is not Ratatouille. It's Remy.
Yeah, that did bother me, but
yeah.
I get it.
But as a sketch, this was wonderful. Of course, if Ratatouille Rat can orchestrate a culinary masterpiece by tugging on what's-his-face's hair, why can't he do the same in the bedroom? Fun idea. Taking it up another level to 80s, whatever, Roachatouille or whatever. What was
Bugatouille.
Bugatouille,
yeah. Fun little gag there.
Roachatouille would have been better though.
Yeah.
Literally putting a hat on a hat, but hey, I'll go with it.
Or Natatouille.
Whatever. We're just going off.
We're out of the writer's room.
So fun. I liked it. I thought this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, what a hilarious premise. I loved it. As soon as he took the hat off, I was like, oh God, yes. And then it was just a perfect example. Put this in a Sketch 101 class for heightening.
Mm-hmm.
We have a rat. Okay, now we have a roach controlling the rat, and then we're gonna have Anton Ego, by the way, which was the perfect capper here. To pan over and have Pete there as the sex critic. Oh, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Just truly great, fantastic heightening there. I loved this so much.
There was something I was feeling. There was something sort of Python-esque about the total left turn of the critic recounting, the masterpiece of this sex session that he's sat in on. So another just fun thing that just catches you completely off guard, which is just more deliciousness on top of whatever they were cooking up here.
Which was Ratatouille. And Steve, what did you think?
I was a bit misled. You know what I was expecting out of this? I saw the top hat. I saw that it was clearly concealing something up there. And I was like, are they doing it? And then John says, I just got back from Paris. And I'm like, oh, they are doing it. This is a Conehead sketch.
Oh, we're from France.
I thought it was going to be an Abe Lincoln.
Yeah.
No.
And then he takes it off and we get what we got. And I say, okay, let's shift gears. This is what we're doing instead. No problem. Wasn't that big of a Conehead fan anyway. So here we are. And I'm just floored that I never thought of this. Like Ratatouille, or Remy as he should be called. Yeah, if he had just picked up a different book and became a expert at something other than cooking, yeah, I guess he could just start pulling hairs and get the job done, whatever it is he learned to do. You throw a hustler at him, and I guess you get this sketch. I thought the premise was good, but my interest was held by the performance of Kyle and 80 as well. I just love that blue screen and playing with scale, putting that hand up and then cutting to the big hand. That's always fun because they never try to make it realistic. You always know the humor is that it's a giant hand there being held on set, and everybody in the audience can see that. But that's what I love about it. There's just something fun about watching them just play with toys. A glorified version of that, but that's really what we're laughing at a lot of the time.
Yeah, one thing that I really liked was that it was short, and I think that was because they were running late.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they probably cut some stuff out, but I think I'm kind of glad because if it had stayed too long, it very quickly would have overstayed its welcome. So I'm actually
what we got
glad that it was
right.
last in the show and that it got cut up a little bit. All right, well, that's the end of our rundown. Let's get into our ratings. John, what was the moment of the night?
I'm gonna give it to the reveal of the Children of the Corn in the MSNBC finance cable show thing. Just terribly creepy. The right way to bounce that sketch up to the next level, and fun was had, and it was a great reveal, and I was sufficiently creeped, and that's all I wanted from that sketch. So that's my moment.
Fair enough. I thought about when the cold open started, and I was like, oh, it's not like a political cold open as I know them. That was a big one. But I think I'm actually going to go with the reveal of Remy the Rat.
Sure.
Because I wasn't sure what this sketch was going to be. I thought maybe Abe Lincoln, what's under the hat. It never occurred to me it was going to be Ratatouille, and then it was, and I was laughing from there on. So that's my moment. Steve?
Good moments. Good moments. I'm going to go with the removal of Scorsese's eyebrows. That was so ridiculous and exactly what that sketch needed in that moment.
Let's talk about your best sketch, John.
Ratatouille. There was some fun material tonight. There was a lot of like solid premises that were competently explored, but I gotta say the one that just felt the most inspired, that had some really fun production values, like even the miniature Ratatouille, his arms had something going on. Like there was a few times where his arms moved, and the miniature, not like the Kyle version.
Right.
So just great production values to add that little just extra bit of specialness, and the fun left turn there at the end with the critic. And yeah, just the fun idea of taking children's fare and making it naughty always wins for me.
Ratatouille is a great choice because it's something that I think all of us really want to see more of on the show.
Yeah.
I like just goofy nonsense.
Sure.
And so that's really good. I'm torn between that and Supermarket Sweep. And I think I'm gonna go with Supermarket Sweep because I think I could watch it 6 more times in the next hour and not get tired of it. So I loved it. Kate and 80 can do no wrong. Steve?
I'm torn. There was there's some pretty good stuff in this episode. And I think because it's been mentioned already, I won't go with the Ratatouille. I was partial to Rocky and Dino and Brandon over at Subway Marketing. I had a lot of fun with this, and yeah, there were other sketches that were up there with this, but I just really enjoyed the performances and the whole idea of it. And yeah, some of the off-color jokes were just uncomfortable enough for me to stay on board and have fun with it. So this is a good mix of weird and just off. And that's what I like in a sketch.
It's a really strong back half of the show. All 3 of our best sketches were post-update.
Indeed.
So John, who's your MVP?
It's 80. It's nice to have her back in the studio. She's wrapped up work on Shrill, so we should be getting her for the rest of the season. She obviously was happy to be back with her pals. Her and Kate were obviously having some fun tonight, but she's pretty much ever present. Like we get her in the Georgia sketch. She's the roach in Ratatouille, or whatever, the bug in Ratatouille. Yeah, and she pops up elsewhere. She was doing some good work, and it was nice to see her heavily featured because we just haven't gotten a lot of her. So 80, had some fun with her tonight.
You make a very strong case. She was a little bit more present than who I'm going to give it to.
Yeah, now pick Kate.
But similar vein, I'm going to go with Kate.
Sure.
John, you can't just call me out.
You've been doing the show long enough that I think our audience could have pegged that one from the get-go.
To be fair, I think I've only given it to Kate like 1 or 2 other times.
But that's only because you're trying to make an appearance of objectivity.
Yeah.
If you had your way. If Kate is in the studio, she's getting MVP.
Yeah.
Okay,
so who are you
fair
picking?
enough.
And follow-up question, why is it Kate?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's Kate because I feel like Kate had a really good show. I feel like Kate was not giggly. Had some strong performances. We got Kate as herself in the cold open, which I loved. I thought she did a great job with her evil twin. And then in the Supermarket Sweep, That's Kate's sweet spot. And there was a fun moment in Supermarket Sweep 2 where they weren't on cue cards because they were gazing into each other's eyes. That that's nice. That's interesting. Yeah,
Yep.
it's Kate. Steve, who's your MVP?
I am giving it to Kyle.
Mm.
And I almost got swayed by all of your great picks of 80 and Kate. I just thought Kyle
had a big night.
He had a big night. The stuff he was in, he was kind of the reason it worked. He was that element that was just the whole sales pitch of the premise relied on him. Without Scorsese, you wouldn't have a working vehicle for Bowen and Kyle to do Fran and Martin. You can't have the Ratatouille sketch without Ratatouille. And if you're going to do Mandalorian, why not bring out his baby Yoda that he's already done? So the sheer amount of makeup that he had to go through and just everything that he made work, I think he deserves it.
Yeah.
That's a very fair pick. On a scale of classic, great, decent, weak, or train wreck, Steve, how would you rate this episode?
I think this deserves a great, my friends. We got a consistently quality episode with few lows and many highs. I think everybody was at their best. 80 is definitely happy to be there. And yeah, just her rediscovered presence on the show it made me realize how much she was missed and how much she's needed. It's going to be a tough replacement when she goes. But everybody feels rejuvenated. This first episode back from the break, you can tell everybody has been inspired by, everything that went on. And I think we got something really good out of it.
Fair enough. I'm actually flirting with a classic.
Ooh.
Just because.
You really miss Kate that much over, 5 weeks?
No, nothing in this episode fell flat. Anything that didn't work was just because it wasn't for me. There wasn't anything that was just like I could say this is, this was not working. This was a bad game. They didn't heighten, everything hit. I thought everything was pretty strong. And then, then we had a few things that I really, really loved. I think I am going to go with a great though, just because everything wasn't phenomenal. You want, I think for a classic, you want a little bit more energy to it, a little bit more buzz, stuff like that. But, it's a very strong great. Nothing bad here. I thought it was a really great episode and glad to have him back. So, yeah. John, what do you think?
I think this is a really solid decent. Like basically the same thing that you said, but I'm just landing on the other side of the line. You're right. Nothing crashed and burned. There's nothing you can point at and say, oh, that just was a horrible misfire. What were they even thinking? Like there was nothing like that tonight. So right there, we're out of train wreck territory. On top of that, usually the live sketch fare is what's going to be more hit or miss and more shaky and more, up and down from sketch to sketch. But I feel like everything at least hit the competent baseline of, that's a serviceable sketch. The worst thing I can say about anything tonight was it was serviceable. So right there, you're out of weak territory. The only thing that we didn't see in this episode too much of that I think would have put it into great territory was just some really exceptional moments that the house was just really digging. You could just feel something was alive and electric. It was a very even keel, middle of the road show, but it just didn't have high highs. And I think you need a couple of them. Weekend Update for me, it had middling stuff from Jost and Che and 3 features. But were any of them really super classic features? No, Kathy Ann's a bit of a retread. My Pillow Guy I really liked, and Fran and Martin Scorsese I really liked. But I mean, this is still just in the clever, competent range, not in the, oh my goodness, I hope we see them back next week. I'm so ready for more of that. It's not like Bowen's Chen Biao, like there's
Right.
some characters that just instantly, like that is a great moment. And we just didn't have a lot of great moments. We just had a lot of fun moments. So I don't know,
Mhm.
really solid, decent.
Fair enough. Well,
Okay.
overall, we're liking it. We're happy
Mhm.
SNL's back. We got some strong stuff. Really, really excited to see Dan Levy next week. And yeah, John, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I should probably throw up a plug to my boy Jamie Dew, who's producing the Saturday Night Live Hall of Fame podcast, which I am featured on in the very first segment of the very first episode, professing my ever undying love and just not entirely wholesome affection for Tina Fey. I feel like I make a pretty strong case that she deserves to be in any SNL Hall of Fame, and I'd love people to check that out. But the cast in general, I think is really well done. I've heard a couple episodes that haven't been released yet, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. I feel like the people that he's bringing in to make their case are just really good listens. It's really engaging stuff. So I'm having fun with it myself. So I can wholeheartedly endorse it and say I think this is a solid listen for any SNL fans. Go check it out at snlhof.com or just look for SNL Hall of Fame in any podcast app. You'll find it.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks to Steve Finn and John Murray. And thanks as well to our most generous patrons, Sam Bowers, Neil Weinstein, Justin Gardner, Carissa Eubank, and Brian Clark. If you're enjoying our show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever better podcasts can be found. Your subscription helps us grow, and your support is greatly appreciated. We'll be back next week when SNL returns with host Dan Levy and musical guest Phoebe Bridgers. But until then, this has been episode number 126 of the Saturday Night Live Afterparty podcast. I'm Catherine Coleman. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.